Gob B is not the in-game leader anymore.
What?
Yeah.
What did you say?
Gob B isn't the in-game leader. Taps in in-game leader to Cologne.
Shocks effect right there.
What?
Yeah.
Thompson is taking on in-game leader.
Gob B,
Alright.
the legendary in-game leader from Mousesports, the man who trained Carrigan, the man who went to North America to make NRG great, but really completely. Welcome to High Talent, episode number 3. We're going to be getting into what should be probably one of the best shows we've had so far. On the bottom right corner, we've got ourselves a man who is the absolute peak of analysis, a man who's got Counter-Strike down to the tips of his fingers, a man who could have probably won as many majors as he wanted to and continued playing instead of retiring. Oh, sorry, that's the bottom left corner. That's Mauisnake over there. And then we also have Maniac, who's here to be the pretty face for the show. Finally, topping things out, the biggest French Counter-Strike fan and probably the most smug one as well right now after what we said in the past 2 podcasts. And what with her predictions and all. But right now, I'm not quite sure how she feels about Maniac, considering the fact that he is, in fact, Swiss. Something that I forget every single time I actually look at his roster history, at the very least. Maniac, how are you?
Hi there. I'm pretty good, thank you. Don't worry about it. I think for Counter-Strike, I'm approximately French. You know, so sometimes I'm Swiss, sometimes I'm French. It's all right. But no, I'm good, and I'm happy to be here. And thanks for having me.
No, good stuff. So immediately we're gonna be jumping into Cologne, and you know what? Let's get it over with. Phoebe, Vitality made the final. What do you think? Ugh.
I called it. You all laughed at me when I said G2 would make EPL. You laughed. They did it. I said Vitality would make the final in Cologne. You laughed at me. But I called it. It was you guys saying things like Mousesports and all sorts of weird stuff. No.
Listen, don't
It's
insult
always gonna
Mousesports,
happen.
all right?
I don't need to. Their performances insult themselves. But yeah, it's. I called it. Zywu too strong. Yeah, it was always going to happen, in my opinion. But you guys, disagree.
Let's get the French fans out of the way first. Maniac, do you want to give a little bit of a reason as to why Vitality was actually able to make it there instead of just saying, "Hey, Zywu too strong"?
No, I was just thinking that, I also thought the Vitality were on the rise. Definitely, you saw how they played in London, and even though the lineup I would say that the team's lineup weren't that high, we could see that they were playing good Counter-Strike, right? So it bode well for Cologne. Now, I think predicting the final, that might have been a little bit risky. Maybe I wouldn't have gone that far. But definitely, it feels like Vitality things are clicking right now. And it's, I want to say, not only Zywu, which it's really hard to qualify if it's only him or not, because if you consider his individual performance, then he is, in my opinion, is probably close to simple as can be right now, as one of the best players in the world. But then also, I think the rest of the lineup stepped up compared to when Vitality were, say, having trouble making it to playoffs. Now everyone's playing a little bit better, so that's why I'm thinking things are just clicking right now. Just people is a little bit better, everyone's a little bit better, and then Zywu is just Zywu.
Maui, I think I'm going to have you step in over there, because I remember once upon a time, and correct me if I'm wrong, you made like a series of tweets, or you made an article or a video, or something that you do, which, I pretend to understand, which said something on the lines of the RPK was good pre-AUG. And now that the AUG had been nerfed again, RPK is going to come out guns blazing. God damn, the tank is in the house. What's happening right there?
Yeah, he's playing like he used to. He used to be a master of just playing around angles. He used to just like, as soon as an approaching terrorist has to reach like an intersection point, he knew that timing just instinctually, it felt like. And now that he's not just holding angles with an AUG and maybe getting 1.5 kills, he actually has the potential to get multi-frag rounds. He just looks a lot better now on CT sides, especially. Has
his role changed in any way? Because for me, like when I'm watching Vitality now compared to when I was watching Vitality a year ago, it seemed a lot of the times that he was kind of in more of a Zipnik's role, where he is alive for a lot of those clutch rounds, where he is, the one being told to, maybe stay back a little bit for a longer time so he can try and clutch those things out. Do you think that comes back to the guns, or is that just Vitality trying to play a different style?
On T side, I don't know if his role has really changed all too much. On CT side, just naturally being an anchor of a lot of bomb sites, he's going to be the last person to get to the other bomb site, so he's going to be the one that's retaking.
Phoebe, I need you to devil's advocate yourself a little bit. What's wrong with Vitality? And not just the pistol rounds that they seem to win and then immediately lose everything else afterwards. Do you think that there is a roadblock coming up for them which might stop them from staying in the top 3? Or are you just saying, it's all the way, baby, all the way?
I mean, obviously the anti-eco situation is insane. it's the sort of thing where you might expect it on a map where you guys are just not feeling it. Fine. To consistently, it was just painful to watch when you think you have a coach who, to all accounts, works ridiculously hard and and clearly is very capable. How is he, or you have two IGLs in MBK and Alex. How are neither of you saying, "Hey guys, something's going wrong here"? And I just think that is the big problem, in my opinion. That you cannot be the second best team in the world if that is what you continuously lose to every single time.
It almost feels like when you watch them play the entire eco, it feels like they treat it as a specific round and they try to make plans for it. Whereas, yes, the conditions are different. Pistols means that short range fights going to be a little bit difficult, but the same principles of Counter-Strike still apply. And I think they try maybe sometimes to have the all universal perfect round instead of just having something that works. And we know we can make it work against the entire eco. And that there used to be a problem for French scene, and I think it's just still a reminiscence of that. We try to sometimes have universal rounds instead of having one or two tactics that work. And this is how I feel like when I see Vitality losing these rounds, because you think, okay, if it works, it's beautiful, but it's actually not working. So maybe just keep it a little easier, a little simpler in the execution, and don't try and figure out all the potential solutions in the round.
What do you want to expand a little bit on what you mean exactly by a universal round for anti-egos? Because I'm sure a lot of people
when I mean universal round, maybe it's not the exact good translation, but I mean that we used to have rounds that would start in a way that anything that could happen, we should have a solution to it, and we would cover every single possible scenario. So could be, for example, 3-1-1, and then if the stack of 3 people meet too many opponents, then they would go back, but we would have all the maps, so we would cover everything, basically keep all the doors open, strategically speaking. And sometimes I see that this is what Vitality is trying to do in these rounds, that they're trying to grab map control left and right, take some risk, and if it works, it's perfect because everything is possible. They can do anything. But if, say, the most left player gets picked up, then the right as well, then suddenly it looks really silly. So in this kind of situation where you try and keep all the doors open, tactically speaking, and then instead of just saying, you know what, we're gonna say all play towards banana, maybe 3 or 4 people have just one lurker very passively, and then we're gonna try and make it work that way, which you cannot do that much in terms of tactics, but if it's safe. You're together, you're playing the numbers, you're playing the utility.
Okay.
It's a bit more one-dimensional, but it's easier. That's what I mean.
That's really interesting, actually. Mao, I'm going to jump to you in a second, but before that, Maniac, from what I've heard about Existence, he seemed to be like one of the in-game leaders that tried to plan out everything, like what you've mentioned. Obviously, I wasn't around when he was at his peak. I wasn't really able to witness the very game's days, unfortunately. But from all accounts, that's what it is. Do you think that maybe it was really his influence as probably the most pivotal in-game leader in the French scene for the longest time that's maybe still continuing to date?
It's tough to say if you have to attribute that to Existence. I think that this universal type of rounds definitely were in place when Existence was at the top. Now, I wouldn't say that's necessarily his legacy. I think it was just the way we were playing, or they were playing back then. And I also think that Vitality have definitely diverted from Existence way of playing or planning how you go into the game. So I wouldn't put too much on that on him.
Fair enough, because I was just thinking that Alex obviously played underneath the leadership of Existence and LDLC as well, so maybe there's a bit of a link over there. But that being said, Maui, you obviously, I know you watched all of Liquid's game, so I kind of want to hear a little bit from you about this. For me, I feel like Vitality is a placeholder top 3 team. I look back to Mousesports in 2017, the way they were very good, but it felt more like they were a placeholder because other teams weren't really able to step up to the playing field. Especially one of the big hurdles that they might face is going up against Liquid. I feel like the only teams that will be able to beat Liquid in a best of 3 or a best of 5 consistently are the ones that can exploit Liquid's weak pistols. And Vitality is the exact opposite of that. So in the grand finals, do you think maybe Liquid drew a good card where another team might have been able to come out on top, like a NaVi or an ENCE?
I don't think there was any team that could have beat Liquid in a BO5 there, at that tournament at least. I think Astralis would have been the hardest just from like a mental aspect of it. Like they the thing is, Liquid beat them at iBuy Power, so maybe that would have given them the confidence. But that's a long time ago at this point, and just kind of knowing that Astralis, the final boss, would have been the last hurdle or something. It's getting kind of subjective here, but like I don't think actually, objectively speaking though, that there were many teams that could have challenged Liquid. I think their map pool was too good. I mean, they played NaVi in the semis, and they beat them pretty handily. I think it didn't look actually that hard. I mean, some of the games were kind of close, some of the rounds were close, but it was a pretty confident win. So I don't think there was really any team here that would have beat them.
I mean,
can I quickly jump in?
yes, I
with a
wanted
little
you to,
something?
of course.
You mentioned the fact that Astralis would have been probably the hardest opponent for them, or at least probably give them the biggest challenge. I have an interview that's meant to go out soon with Nitro, where I asked him, and I said, you beat Astralis when you were at EPL, you're now top of the rankings. Do you feel confident?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah.
And he kind of said, we definitely feel more confident knowing that we beat them at the last tournament, and it's exciting because at EPL we had the org pre-nerf, and now there's no org. So we think that I think that they think they have the upper hand again because we were really using the orgs when they were really overpowered. But I think our teamwork is actually on point now, and I think that's what makes us better than most teams right now. I just think we're playing really well as a team in a unit in the servers, so we're confident against them right now. So he doesn't fear them at all as a leader, at least.
I actually really agree with his Og point. I think some of the teams that were kind of scary when, like ENCE, for example, like I said like the reason I couldn't pick them as a finalist last podcast was because of the Og nerf. Astralis is kind of in a similar boat, I think, where they kind of want to just play, the good crossfires, good setups, and things like that, and not have to. They still did really well on CT side though, so I can't fault them there. They still actually had really good setups and like allowed players to get multi-frags. And even though I thought their individual performance was going to drop off, you still see a lot of them popping off on CT sides, especially. So I don't know if the Og is something I would like say was giving Astralis the era they have. But yeah, I mean, it's still.
It helped.
Yeah, it helped. It probably helped.
Maniac, what do you think?
No, I was just thinking about the org and the change of level in teams pre and post nerf, and I agree. I think Astralis was a very good CT sided team, even before the org was so great. But then I think that the weapon just played into how they wanted to play the Counter-Strike. Which is what my way of saying. Crossfire, retaking information, moving together, and then suddenly you have a weapon that allows a very, very strong player, or already very strong, and then he can basically tax 1, 2, 3 player from the same position, which with the M4 wasn't really possible. But now with ENCE, I was just trying to think, was ENCE's success really that based on the org? To me, I feel like there is some other factors that come into play, because if you'd asked me a few weeks ago what made ENCE's success, I would say the T side. That would have been my answer automatically. I would say they're one of the best T-sided team I've ever seen. The way they execute, the way they plan, it looks very polished. And so I cannot think of the org nerf as the reason why ENCE dropped off, because they have, let's be honest. But I also think that their last place in Cologne must be really taken with some distance, and we should be careful with it, because after all, that's one best of one failed, which is at the highest level unacceptable. Of course, if you want to be at the top, you cannot drop a best of one to heroic. That's how it is. Astralis at the top wasn't doing it, but at the same time, then you lose to Vitality, who went on to the final. So let's keep things in context.
Well.
Yeah, exactly. That was a close game as well. So I know that with with the if and buts and all that, but say ENCE beat Vitality in the very tight best of 3, then what are we talking about now?
It's Fnatic,
we don't really know.
Heroic again. That's really easy
exactly.
for them. Like they could very easily make it
exactly.
To the playoffs. So it could have been a lot easier for ENCE. That's what we're trying to say. But one of the other things that I kind of feel about Liquid, and let's talk a bit about what Liquid's kryptonite is. I mentioned in a few tweets that the way Liquid is playing right now on their terrorist side, which seems to be very explosive and very much dependent on going into sites very quickly, using some flexible defaults that they've got on a particular few maps, it should be these teams like Vitality and NaVi that are high in superstar firepower that should be able to take them down. And we kind of saw that a little bit in the NaVi Liquid series, which could have gone 2-0 the way of NaVi if Simple hadn't that knife. So is that where we see Liquid falling? Because Vitality, I thought they'd be a lot better suited, but after in the first 3 maps, they won 5 out of 6 of the pistol rounds, and they didn't get a single round after that. They lost every single one of those anti-deagle rounds, and that's obviously something that is going to hinder you from even coming close to beating Liquid. Maniac, do you think that that's the kind of team that will be able to maybe upset Liquid, even if not beat them consistently?
I mean, yes, I guess you're right when you say that Liquid's main card when they go into a best of 3 or a best of 1 even is the firepower. And I think we have to highlight the amount of firepower there is in Liquid, because I think it's unprecedented. Like, one team with so good players in the same roster. If you go back to when Astralis was dominating the scene, you wouldn't use the same terms to describe how they were dominating. You would say, okay, they have the most polished Counter-Strike, tactically speaking, it's perfect, details and all that. With Liquid, and at the same time, this is why it's so impressive with them, I believe that there is still a step higher for them. Because I think that the way they play Counter-Strike sometimes can be a little bit more polished, maybe a little bit reckless in some situations, but they still have 5 players right now with Nitro, in my opinion, stepped up massively. Elige is now an MVP candidate every tournament. That wasn't the case a few months ago. Not even talk about Twist and Nav because we don't need to. And now Stewie found this groove. You have 5 players who are so powerful in one lineup, which means that they don't really have to abide to all Counter-Strike rules. Sometimes they can skip them. They win situations they're not supposed to win. They win clutches they're not supposed to win because of how talented they are. So yes, if a lineup like Vitality or NaVi on a very, very good day, individually speaking, everyone steps up, then maybe you can start seeing the cracks in Liquid's game plan in general. Because I don't think this is the most polished, refurbished CS there is at the moment. It's just 5 of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
Amongst other things.
It's a little bit like FaZe from last year, but an organically grown FaZe where all of the players have come together and meshed really well and, grown as a unit rather than, hey, you're the best, you're all the best, come together.
Yeah.
But Phoebe, talk to me a bit about NaVi, because like I said, NaVi was kind of the only team that looked like they're going to be able to stab Liquid in the back. This is obviously their first tournament ever since Boomich came into the roster. He had some ups and downs. What do you think about them and their new roster?
I think when a team hasn't played pretty much it was almost 2 months, I think it was.
A month and a half.
Yeah, month and a half. And they've made a change. It's really hard to judge them entirely on that first performance because yeah, maybe this is, the sign of how things are going to be, or maybe it is that honeymoon period where, yeah, you've added a new player and you're a little bit more unpredictable and people aren't really used to it and it looks a lot more promising than it is. But I think that the problem also is that Zeus is meant to be leaving at some point this year, presumably after the major, and they're kind of trying to train Boomich up in some sort of like, okay, you're going to be the next in-game leader for NaVi. So you also have this situation where if you have a player that is going to essentially leave and somebody else takes over, you're also having to build a system where you know that another key element is going to change within the next few months if Zeus does choose to retire in the end. So how much can you you can build, you can do stuff with Simple and Electronic and Flamey, but you also have Zeus who's just sat there thinking, okay, yeah, I'm gonna help you, Boomich, but I'm not gonna be here in a few months. So, when somebody else comes in, you're gonna have to kind of not start from scratch, but work out who you want and what you're gonna do with whoever they choose to bring in.
Maui, I know you want to jump in on that.
Well, talking about the future of NaVi, I agree. There's nothing to debate about that. I mean, it's going to be rough for them in the future, but with this showing, I think they kind of showed that they weren't very well rehearsed lately. Their CT sides look so panicked at times, where just Simple dies or someone dies on the team, and then their ways of gaining information in the mid round was just really badly communicated or something. Because there'd be times when I think twice in the Liquid series where it was just really big WTF moments where just kind of Zeus has his knife out looking towards tunnels. I remember one round he was at car and he was just standing on the box at car at B, and it was just it was really weird what was happening. And then there was another time where Boomich was already in water on overpass, and then Zeus for some reason thought he needed a peak connector. I don't know. There was just all these little instances where it's why are they not talking, or what's going on here? Yeah, you're in a 4v5. You should look for information, but like they'd already have information or they'd already know something, and then they would make mistakes despite knowing something. It just looked like they were really lost. I'm pretty sure that in one tournament from now, that's not going to happen. So I think they actually do have a chance, like you said, strategically speaking, to give Liquid a better run for their money. But I still think it's hard. It's going to be really hard to topple Liquid.
Matthew, to me, this sounds like the exact same Navi from last year.
Yeah, I was exactly thinking that the way Maui is describing Navi to me is just, yeah, well, that's Navi.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
It's messy.
Yeah.
A lot of WTF moment, as you say. You look from the outside, you think, what is happening in this round? And then suddenly they win it because Simple is gonna win a clutch that completely changes the economical cycle of the situation. Or Electronic goes off. I also think that there are some silly moments in Navi, but profoundly, I think they play sound Counter-Strike. Like they know how to handle very weird situation, and they've always sort of thrive in this chaotic situation. That has always been a strength. Now, when I think about the future, I actually had forgotten, to be honest, I had forgotten that Zeus was on his way out. Somehow my mind just decided that Boomich was here and that's it.
Listen,
that's the new lineup.
We don't know that that'll happen. I know he said it in the beginning of the year.
That's a
but,
possibility.
Yeah.
Let's pretend that's a possibility. For the sake of the argument, let's pretend Zeus is on the way out and Boomich is going to take his place as an ingame leader. Whoever you're going to end up picking up, in my opinion, if you pick up like a good talent, individually speaking, someone that can fit in with the team and who's going to play basically the role that he needs to, then I would say it's almost guaranteed a win-win. Because no disrespect to Zeus, I think Zeus is a fantastic captain. I think Zeus is one of the only true captains left we have at Counter-Strike, sort of like a war hero that is going to just gather the troops behind him and be that figure. I've seen him doing online. I've seen him doing against me. I've seen him doing as an analyst. He's really top-notch for that. But if you think about strategically what he's doing with this Navi team, I am almost certain that Boomich can do pretty much the same in terms of, how am I going to lead the team? What are we going to do now? I wouldn't put too much on Zeus's shoulder as of now. So if you think that Boomich is going to be able to do that, if you argue that Boomich is probably a little bit or way better individually, then suddenly if you bring someone else in that's going to topple that individual level, but with the same playstyle, then I just see it as a win-win. I don't see how it can go down for Navi in that situation.
Yeah.
I think tactically speaking, like for how Boomich can just slot in for Zeus, it feels like the way he went super hard in depth for tactics, it felt like for Gambit, and I haven't really seen that level of depth. And he has different personnel, so he's not going to be saying simple, please follow this super rigid structure every round. Like it's just never, you got to play to your star strengths.
Yeah.
And like they finished like dead last in like T side flash assists. They were pretty low in round win percentage in general and stuff like that. Like the stats kind of show that their T side, which for Gambit was like very interesting, is now like no longer like, it just feels like kind of a typical T side. And I think if they get someone like Quicker or something from a Vanguard, like they're gonna be they're gonna destroy.
BB, last point on Navi. I was going to make that at the end, but you know what? I just need to hear this from you. Do you think Zeus is putting in the same kind of effort that he did in Gambit in this current iteration of Navi?
I think it's hard to really make that assessment without having any knowledge of it in the sense of... Well, no. The other thing that I realized is also... Okay, you're laughing at this, but okay. There's also the fact that Kane is coaching while they have Blade as what I don't know what they have him in
Esports
in Navi, but he is essentially just there, kind of waiting. I feel like however they're using him, they could use him more in that sort of coaching role in order to kind of add more, because I know everyone jokes about what Kane does, but it doesn't look like he does a huge amount from the outside. And I think that when you have somebody as notable as Blade, just kind of running other things or scouting talent as
looking at Excel sheets.
Yeah, exactly. He's the one that, it seems from the interview snippets and stuff, that he's the one that's then looking at demos, and he's the one that kind of said, oh yeah, you want Boomich, you definitely do.
Right.
Well,
No, that's a fair point. Especially because I think that's one thing that they'll be trying to maybe adjust once Zeus is out. We all know Zeus and Kane very good friends. One of the reasons why he departed from Gambit was, of course, that they said that they wanted Kane out, from the rumors at the very least. But let's go on to talk about the real big boys of this tournament. Let's talk about the only team that mattered this tournament. Let's talk about why Mousesports is so good and why they should have been in top 6. Matthew, what do you think about this Mousesports team? Is it not the second coming itself? Is it not Karrigan showing that he's the greatest in-game leader of all time? Say yes, Matthew.
Okay. Let me put it. I need to preface my answer. I realize that I might be a little overhyped about Mousesports because I feel not. I'm extremely hyped about that team, and maybe the results as of yet do not back up the crazy expectations that I have, but they have amazed me in, like, how can I put it? When you put 5 players together like that, like Karrigan, obviously a known in-game leader, has done it in the past with FaZe Clan. He knows how to handle just take players and put them together, and that becomes the team. So he knows how to do that. But there are so many different difficulties and challenges you need to face when you bring different players together like that, and you hope to create a team. Because like sports have shown it, Counter-Strike have shown it. A team is just not 5 players. It's way more than that. If you want a team to be working, you need role consistency, and you need people to be happy in what they're doing. You need communication to be right. You need the spirit to be right. You need to have like a tactical, how can I put it, game plan, obviously. And all of this, it looks like, is coming together in Mousesports, which is amazing to me. And then I think you have a very nice balance between young, very explosive players, and then the more like old school experienced players. I think Chris J and Karrigan are doing a really good job at that. And on top of that, you have Frozen, who's like half my age, twice my skill when I was playing, which is very frustrating. No, it's a nice story, and I'm looking forward to see them evolve. And I think they can definitely make it into a safe like top 8 in the world if they are not already in there. But I'm gonna give them a little bit more time to sort of cement that position.
Maniac, I don't know if I think you're being a bit generous about twice your skill. I'd go with 3 times, but hey,
5 times probably.
Phoebe, how does it make you feel that Mousesports is getting top 8s at tournaments in about 2 months since they started playing at them, compared to Vitality, who is still trash 6 months in?
Okay, well, Vitality qualified for Cologne. Mousesports got their free invite, so they already were
top 8.
Lucky. Yeah, and Vitality made top 2, so...
is that a war that you got going on, Mousesports versus Vitality?
Yes,
is what's happening here? Or... okay, so that I understand.
So how does that make you feel, Phoebe?
Well, the thing is, you thought that Mousesports were going to make the final of EPL.
I'm telling you, Mousesports is going to be top 3 at the end of this year.
The thing is, all joking aside, Mousesports has that. Yeah, looking at them, it's good. It's good stuff, and actually, I respect the Cologne run. I do. I respect it. But I don't know. I feel like.
You feel like
Karrigan can be given
better,
anyone.
I understand. Maui,
No.
anyway. Maui, onto you before Phoebe actually says something bad about them, because she's done me a favor so far. Maui, I need you to really kind of ground this in reality, because I'm not going to do that. Phoebe's not going to do that. Matthew's evidently, kind of a little bit of a fanboy as well right here. So, he's on my team. Maui, talk to me a little bit about this, because at the end of the day, Mousesports over here, all they really did was go close to NaVi, and they beat FaZe and MVP PK. FaZe is kind of and MVP PK is obviously the Asian team. They did really well in certain situations, but you expect them to be the lowest seed. What do you think is kind of going to be the major wall that they need to get across?
Having coached a team that's kind of full, like young stars that are like really fragging out, and then like older veterans in the group, like sometimes there's like a divide after a while where kind of like the older guys will talk to each other and the coach and just kind of like talk about like okay, to get over the wall is being just like, it's very clear Chris J and Karrigan are going to be like the bottom fraggers in like most of their games, and that's not like too bad or anything like that. But kind of what's happening with Counter-Strike is you kind of need like like I don't think you can rely on 3 people right now, and like to get to like top 3 status, you need 4.
Don't you think
And
Chris J is
has
fragging pretty well?
not at this tournament. He didn't. It was kind of like the young 3 were like really good, but then kind of the other 2 there was just such a steep drop off in performance. And I think maybe 2 years ago you could have got away with 3 people fragging and then 2 people playing kind of like okay. But now I feel like you just can't do that. That's like it's just such like a loose thing because strategically they look really good. I think their CT sides are like, well, their CT sides were the best at this tournament. On T sides, I like how they get into position a lot of the time. I like how they pinch sights a lot of the time. I like how they execute. I know Kerrigan puts in a lot of like, once we get to this stage of the round, we're gonna do this. Talking to Drone about what he brought to the team when he was playing for Envy, I heard like just how much level of detail he goes into to make sure that everything goes right. But like Woxic, Rops, and Frozen, they all showed up in this at this LAN, but Chris J and Kerrigan kind of played beneath themselves. And to be like a great team, like when a team kind of goes on like a miracle run at a tournament, it's usually because their IGL, who's always bottom fragging, does really well. For Mouse to do really well, they need Chris J and Kerrigan to do above themselves. And so I think it almost comes down to an individual skill thing. I think Mouse is actually really good. They're right there tactically with every team. Like that's in the top 5 or so. But I don't think you can get away with just 3 fraggers.
Maniac, do you think that they can make top 3 like with this kind of firepower?
No, I agree. I think Maui is, and I'm really sad to say it because I like Mousesports, but I think he's right. To make it top 8 with the quality of the 3 fraggers that you've just talked about, and Kerrigan and his in-game skills, just I mean mentally and tactically, I think they can make top 8. Now, if you want to go higher than that, then I agree. 3 players is not going to be enough, and Mousesport really like big run are never going to be as rare as Kerrigan and Chris J overperforming. So now, if you tell me that individually speaking, they're gonna, improve, maybe they're gonna work on it. I think Chris J with Mousesports at times, and I'm talking about the previous situation of Mousesports, at times he could really show up pretty high. So is it like a mental case? Is it a role? Is it the map? I'm not exactly sure, so I'm not gonna go ahead and lie to people. But I have seen it from Chris J. Kerrigan a bit more rare, obviously, in FaZe, he only had to do whatever the team needed to do to succeed. So I think maybe Kerrigan could show more in Mousesports than he did in FaZe. But if these 2 don't step up or play a little bit better, then this is going to be the limit of Mousesports. Then another theme or subject that we could talk about is the clutch situation. I think this, when you have 3 fraggers that are arguably the least experienced players, I think Rob's played with Mousesports for the longest time, but Frozen and Woxic obviously a bit less experienced. I want to see how Mousesports is going to fare in really, really tight and high pressure situation, because then this is usually when the experienced players step up, and we've been talking about how individually they need to play a little bit better. So Kerrigan and Chris J playing a little bit better, and the clutch slash pressure situation. To me, these are the two limits that Mousesports could have right now.
No, I think I agree with that. But on the clutch point, I think Kerrigan, statistically, I checked this last year. I didn't check this year, but statistically, Kerrigan was actually the highest clutching in-game leader, other than Nitro. So he's definitely got a few, tricks up his sleeves. He definitely has a few places where he can jump in as the in-game leader, even, and frag out in certain circumstances, which is always nice to have. I personally have a bit more faith in Chris J. Honestly, it's been 4 events that we've seen him have above a 1.15 rating on HLTV on successively. Now, of course, he's 29 years old. That's a pretty difficult situation to really bring up your game, as I'm sure Matthew.
Do you mean he's old? Be very careful about your answer. Do you think 29 is old?
Listen, Matthew, I hate to break it to you. I hate to break it to you, but yeah, there's a reason why you're on this podcast and not on Vitality.
Oh, no. That's it.
Anyhow.
It's too late.
Last topic, and I want... I'm going to ignore Astralis because I'm kind of confused about where they are. Actually, no, let's talk about Astralis. Never mind. Astralis made top 4, but we saw them go from being good, great. Top 4 comes and a device is gone. And Device has been the one rock in Astralis where even in their decline, his ratings have been obscene. He's been performing individually out of his mind. He's reminding everyone why at one point he was considered to be, right behind Simple and Nico. Now, in 2018, people didn't give him that kind of credit, and Device reminded everyone what a star player he is. But in top 4, in the semi-finals, that wasn't really seen at all. Is there a risk, because I personally think there is, that Astralis kind of falls back in towards choking territory? Because for me, one of the bigger reasons why Astralis was able to get away from that is because of how dominant they were. It's because of that swagger that you get from being a champion. And now that they're not, and now that they have all that kind of baggage on their back, do you think that there might be this problem, Phoebe?
Well, before their semi-final match, and I think it was after maybe one quarter-final, 3 of Astralis were the highest rated players in the entire tournament. And they looked good. I mean, yeah, they didn't quite look as they have in the past, but I don't think anyone thought that Vitality were going to come in and 2-0 them when they were
2-1.
in that form. Oh, yeah, 2-1 them. But I think a lot of people were saying, no, Astralis, that rather than relying on one player like Vitality kind of are seen to do, it's like, oh no, all of Astralis are doing quite well. But on the sort of dominance point, a lot of people kind of said they didn't always have even though they were dominant, they didn't always have the cleanest of maps. They would sometimes have huge leads and teams would start to creep and then they'd close it out. There was always that kind of... It was the fact that they could perform well and dominate and then have a slight slip didn't seem to matter, because they usually were so far ahead that losing 3 rounds suddenly because you're having a bit of a panic wasn't the end of the world, compared to a team that maybe had closer maps and would choke it out. But I don't know. I don't think that I don't think they're choking in the sense of the old days.
Yeah.
But I think that there is definitely something worrying about a team that when you drop off, trying to then go back, you in your head, you're always thinking that you should be at the level you were before. And I think, to bring in sort of MiBr, trying to play an old style or trying to go back to what you think you should be playing like, can be quite difficult to then go, okay, no, we need to change things. We need to work out what's now going wrong, rather than trying to go back to something that you're comfortable with, or that you recognize that you believe should work.
So you're saying they need to kick someone and add Valde?
That's it. Quoted 2019.
Done. It's easy. This is the media in the current day and age. But Maui, do you want to maybe go back to the 80s media and give us some idea of what you think about this overall? Because I personally think the Device falling off over there is really entirely mental.
In the semis, I guess I didn't really see him get as aggressive early on, or maybe he did, but he didn't succeed as often as he usually does. He still had a really good first kill rating for the tournament, but just from watching the semis, I didn't feel like he was like Astralis is so good when they're in a 5v4.
Yeah.
They just close it out so consistently, but he didn't really do that as much, and they didn't really have Astralis, that is, didn't have as many answers as to how to get that opening pick. Liquid uses the riflers and they use aggressive opping to get opening advantages. Astralis was super well known for using just Device, and I think they need to get their riflers' confidence up or something, because they need to adapt a little bit, and they need to use other methods to find opening frags. The reason Liquid, I think, was so good against NaVi and Vitality is because they kind of neutralize opening fragging potential from Simple and ZywOo really well, and that's, I guess people are learning to do that better now. I don't know. I don't know if this is consistent across all teams right now, but I am noticing that it seems like opening picks from ops are not quite as frequent as they used to be. So I think people are learning to just use utility better or something, and can flash off oppers better, or maybe they just expect it and they don't peek. They don't try to just get that ground that they know is risky at times. Or I don't know exactly, but I also think Astralis just needs to rehaul their map pool a little bit. I think it's kind of weak right now. I feel like they have 3 good maps, and it's kind of weird right now. I think what happened before is that every team wanted to play Inferno, but then Astralis kind of mastered it, and teams kind of are a little scared of. Were scared of Astralis. Vitality still took him to overtime, but like Train and Nuke were also things they could fall back on. And now teams are playing like Dust 2 and Overpass a lot more, and those maps have never really been Astralis' strengths, other than when Dust 2 first came out again.
And in 2017.
Astralis looked, they looked right. Like they looked really good when Dust 2 first came out. Now they just kind of look like they don't handle it very well anymore.
Matthew, so Astralis almost lost out to Vitality 2-0. Maui's talking a bit about riflers. Do you think that maybe this is where we see Dupree in a position where if he doesn't step up, then Astralis will never go beyond a particular point? Because like Maui's saying, Oppas are kind of going out of style for opening picks.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with it. I think maybe Maui has more precise knowledge than I do when it comes to the games and what happened in the games. But I might be wrong, but I think that Device disappearing out of games was kind of a symptom of the old Astralis before they went to that, undisputable #1 rank. So he had a few games here and there where he would disappear. So I wouldn't be surprised if that fixes itself as the level of Astralis just rises up again.
It rises.
Now, yeah, exactly. And now Phoebe mentioned MiBr, and I just want to say that Astralis, did they drop from that pedestal they were on? Definitely. Yeah, they're definitely not the best team anymore in the world. But if they manage to kind of open the parachute and stay in semi-final position, maybe even borderline final, then that would be some sort of silver lining and success to me. Because it's really hard. If you think about it, for them, it's really hard. They were in a position where they were winning pretty much every tournament they went to. No one would ever argue that they were the best team in the world. Then they drop off. They had all the media cycle against them with all the blast situation, all that. Don't even want to touch it. It must have been hard for them. So I wouldn't have been surprised if they had completely disappeared, because that was a lot to have on your shoulder. Now, I actually think they showed a great face in Cologne, a better face. And if from now on this is what they're going to see, then in itself, that is challenge successful, I would say, going from top 1 to not disappearing and falling into hell. Now, yeah, it's tough to say. I think that Dupree having a lot on his shoulder is kind of a symptom of a team that is struggling.
Yeah.
Because you should not have so much pressure on one player to perform. I think that Xipnix had a great Cologne, but he was also very quiet when Astralis was in the middle of their dark period, if we can call it like that. So Xip was a bit quiet. I also agree with the maps. I think that Astralis for the longest time could only bleed on Overpass and Mirage. These were the two only maps that they could even think about losing. The others were non-negotiable. But now that people aren't afraid of Nuke that much anymore, and that Overpass is not going so well, then suddenly a map pool that was so strong looks a little bit weak, and Dust 2 is also a turning point. So there are many factors to explain the Astralis situation, but it's not as dark as it looks like, I think, for me.
Here's the thing. I actually kind of disagree with you there, Matthew, because for me, this is a symptom, and I'm working on a video for this as well. This is a symptom of a strategic drift within an organization, which is where a team will consider that, hey, we just need to go back to what was working for us before. And this happens to a lot of very successful teams. So if we actually look over to MiBr, they haven't won a single tournament, and I'm not counting Zotac Cup Masters because that was Zotac Cup Masters, in the entirety of MiBr, like as underneath that organization. And we saw that as a symptom of them actually coming down to, hey, we're going to solidly stay at top 4. Now, there is a pretty big difference, which is very important to keep in mind, is that the Brazilian esports scene is completely different to Danish esports scene. So as far as buyouts go, because of the law that is in place, which I think is either Pele's law or Maradona's law within Brazilian sports community, which says that you can have a buyout of up to 200 times your player's salary, that's different in Denmark. So in Denmark, Astralis has a lot more accessibility to directly available talent. The question comes in is, are they going to be using it? Because ultimately, if they want to go back to the same style again and again, the same way MiBr tried to do so, just by switching out one player, two players, and there, you never really come back to the top in the same way, and it is just a slow decline. But
just to clarify, because maybe I didn't make myself clear when I was using MiBr as a counter example, because I think that MiBr were up there and they completely crashed.
Yeah,
I was just using it to say, Astralis didn't do it. Oh, yeah?
Because I'm saying if it happens, it'll happen over time. MiBr didn't crash immediately either. They did come down to that, hey, top 4s consistently. Now, the point in Astralis' favor is that Glaive has done this before in the sense that he has reset the paradigm of a team. He's changed it very starkly from when Kiabi was on to when Magix was on. It was a lot of similar things within the CT side, but a lot of the T side did, of course, change very heavily. And I think I give them credit for that. So they are at a lesser of a risk than crashing down that way. But I still think that the risks over there are actually fairly significant. And it's not it's not as cut and dry as people might think. Like, I look back to Fnatic after their era, they went down to a point where, hey, they're always getting top 4s, they're always going to be top 8s, then it's a slow decline downwards again. I wasn't around in NIP, so maybe you can talk about that, but I just feel like this is what happens to teams who have eras.
Just to touch on that, and then I will let the other people speak as well, not to monopolize the discussion, but I think that all the way we used to describe Astralis and the way we used to explain why they were having success, the way they were working, all the stuff they had around them, their discipline, their mentality and all that, I think this is a really strong safety net that's going to guarantee that they are not going to disappear and fall into oblivion, right? Yeah. Now, that if the only risk is that players literally have meltdowns, which is possible. Yeah. As I say, it can be very frustrating when you used to be at the top and you don't really understand why you're not there anymore. You're trying to make it work, it doesn't, and then you can get flustered and suddenly it snowballs into something that you can't control. Now, I cannot say that this will not happen. It could potentially happen. I mean, it's up to them, but I do believe that they have all these safety nets around them to guarantee that they're going to stay at the top, if not at the very top, obviously, but still at the top.
Okay. Do either one of you two want to jump in on that?
I agree with Maniac. I don't think they're going to really go anywhere right now. I think they were my pick. Yeah. No, they were my pick to win this tournament. I thought they were going to come out swinging. I thought I think they still have all the pieces to do really well. I actually don't think they need to make even a roster swap or anything. It's just kind of like Astralis is like just kind of waiting now. They're just kind of like trying to find their timing or something. It's like they might show up for the next major. I still have like a lot of confidence in this team. It doesn't feel like it's like it doesn't feel like they're falling off a cliff or anything like that. They still have really, really good CT sides. They might not be like in the meta as much as like a team like Liquid right now that's kind of defining like how to just get opening picks, but like they look really good. And if they just kind of like look back a little bit, I mean, Zonic, I know, watches like as many demos as like possible. Like he's going to find more tricks. He's going to introduce new tricks. He's going to show their riflers. And like what ends up happening with like the cycle of every good team is kind of like you do everything well. You're like your tactics and your like individual skill is like super good. Then like you're so much confidence, you kind of like don't have to rely on your tactics and your individual skill kind of carries you for a while. And then after you get too comfortable, everything kind of falls because you don't introduce new tactics and your individual skill falls because you've lost confidence that you're going to do well because you're using the same tactics now that have been losing. Astralis they innovate. I mean, they also just like, they just play correctly so well. And their CT sides have been just so good throughout time that just like, I don't see them just like not introducing new stuff. I don't see them not changing the game plan up. They're very practical. If something's going wrong, they change it up. They'll change their setup. They'll change like a strategy. Like, yeah, they have so many little. They have such a deep playbook to go into. Also, that they can bust things out. Like, yeah.
Phoebe, do you want to get your 2 cents in really quickly before we move on to news?
Sure. I mean, when I first started seriously following CS, it was kind of back in early 2017 when I was really taking notice. And Astralis had won a major. Astralis were looking really good.
Yeah.
Then they kind of were making top 4. They were consistently in playoffs. And then, Device had health issues and they kind of... And then in 2018, then they kind of came in and went, oh, hey, no, we're here. Made a change. And yeah, they dropped off considerably at the end of 2017 because of having to use stand-ins and they had all sorts of other problems. But they managed to come back and do far better than they ever did, in 2017. And I think that there is a tenacity in them, and the fact that, as they love to talk about, they have that support network and they have all the people working to make it work.
Yoga.
That it would be really surprising to see them just go off the end of a cliff in any way.
Well, you know what? This is really satisfying for me because in a year from now, I'm going to tweet it all through of you guys and tell you guys that you suck and I'm better. That's all that matters. And on
We're
that,
gonna win a
note,
tier 1 event, and then we'll tweet at you.
Yeah, I'll make sure
winning a tier
to
one-
record all of
Hey,
that, and next time they
hey,
win an
hey.
event, and bam, just drop that clip.
Listen, Maniac, if you want to give me that engagement on Twitter, you're more than welcome to.
It's a win-win for you.
It's a win-win
You can't
for
lose
me.
at that game.
Exactly. That's why I go ahead and make these absurd claims. Like, Mousesports isn't making top 3. We all know they're going to be top 2. Anyway. So
It's getting a little crackly, by the way.
Okay,
just a little bit.
I'm just going to re-plug my microphone, guys. You guys say hello to each other.
You just want us to talk, and you can talk.
I mean,
something.
I'll be
Okay,
done. I'll be done in literally 15 seconds, so it doesn't really matter that much. So if you guys want to, be nice to each other in the meanwhile.
Nice leg, Maniac.
Yes,
It is a nice leg.
I do that all the time, and then I realize it's actually in the camera, so I can't do that. I love to have like my leg on my chair. Let's be professional. Let's not do that.
You're more than welcome to bring your legs in. Trust me, that's the thumbnail right there.
I'm actually sitting cross-legged right now. That's how I sit a lot of the time.
Don't worry, guys. Everyone get your legs out for Maniac. Here we go.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes, Maui. Yes. Anyway, on legs out for Maniac. That's a new hashtag. Get it going on Twitter.
Please don't do that.
Right.
Moving on. News.
Moving on. News. Let's. I think we're done with Cologne. Is there anything else either one of you wants to discuss? Maui, Phoebe.
I don't. Oh, one thing. I don't think Liquid's that bad, as bad at pistols as they're like letting on. Like, they just got kind of like unlucky sometimes. Actually, like when I rewatched a lot of their pistols back, like if one kill or something went their way, it would have been a completely different round. And that happened like 3 times in rounds they lost. So, and they didn't even do that badly. Like I don't know what their pistol record. It wasn't like it was the worst in the tournament.
The finals was
but
pretty
I just
bad,
wanted to
though.
bring that up. The finals, yeah, but like that's just like sometimes the other team just has this IWU and he just hits a lot of shots that are like turning points in rounds. So that happens.
Maniac, do you want to get a word on in that? Because I know Phoebe doesn't.
I mean, I can't really explain why you would have trouble with pistol rounds when you have 5 of the most skilled individuals ever.
Yeah.
So I don't really, I don't feel like I'm in the position to say this is why they lose their pistols. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe. Joker, I'm gonna just ask the. Do you have who wants to win $1 million here? It's a Kivigan in the million. Maybe I could just ask the public and find an answer because I don't really know how to explain their issues with the pistol round.
If anyone in Twitch chat says anything useful in the next 3 minutes, I'll talk about it. But probably that's not gonna happen. Anyhow, so. Phoebe, don't worry. I know neither one of us is particularly analytical enough to care about the pistols, so it's fine.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
It's all right. Anyhow,
I just know heads go pop.
Yeah, heads go pop. You know, USPs make nice sounds. So let's move on to a little bit of news. First of all, just starting off with something a little bit, lower down the rankings. We don't really talk about teams below the top 5 very often, so I thought may as well, especially because we've got Maniac on. Existence was kicked from the Gamerlegion roster, even though they made top 2 over there. Yes! Yes, that is a reaction I wanted. Yes. You know what? You've got something to say.
Yeah. No, I mean, let's preface that, say I'm actually completely biased when it comes to that. So my opinion is not worth much. I'm kind of sad for Existence. And I think this could be probably the final, like the nail in the coffin for him in his career, at least to the top level of Counter-Strike, unless some unexpected opportunity comes up, and then I'm sure he would rise to it. But it's just I'm kind of mad at him. I'm mad at him because I read his tweet longer, and he says, "You know me, guys. I don't have my tongue in my pocket," in a very French way to say that. It's very funny. I can picture him saying that, and I'm just thinking, God damn it! Like, can you not learn to do that? Like, Existence. Okay, let me put it this way: when Existence was the best in-game leader in the world and playing in one of the best or the best team in the world for years and years, he did not need to know how to talk to people because he was Existence. It didn't matter. He could look around and say to Shocks or Kenyas or NBK, like, "What are you doing? This is not how you." He could do that. It's all right. You had the luxury to do that, but now. He should realize he can't do that anymore. Like, he needs to develop like social skills. like how to talk to people, how to give feedback to someone. Like it was always an issue for him, and I'm mad that now I read this tweet longer and he says that apparently that could have been a problem in his new team. And at the same time, obviously, Dennis being available, there is a majority of Swedes now in that lineup. I can understand how they would take Dennis. I can totally understand that. But yeah, like Kevin, come on, like I'm kind of mad that I had to read that about. It looks like it's one of the reasons why he got removed.
Honestly, I think it's a really, really dumb thing to do to replace Existence with Dennis and put Hampus back on in-game leading, even though I know Hampus is actually a decent in-game leader. He's definitely proven it before, but it's just like the man was fragging out. Hampus was doing really well in his games. Putting that in-game leader mantle back onto him, why are you doing that to yourselves? Phoebe, do you have any thoughts on that? It's because I feel like Dennis won't be able to come back to his prime underneath Hampus. I feel like Existence could have done much better with this team overall.
I think that Gamerlegion under Existence achieved a lot more than they had any right to be achieving. And when you look at it, it literally does look like a bunch of people who had no team decided to just come together to at least be able to play. It feels like, okay, well, this is our best option, and an org for some reason is paying us a salary. Let's see how it goes. And I think that Existence isn't undeniably great in-game league. Yeah, even if he has some issues communicating on a basic level without just pissing people off, that's obviously going to be a problem. But there are plenty of teams that can achieve or can at least work together professionally, even if there are those tensions and you have problems with each other. But I think that, yeah, the fact that this keeps happening to Existence, maybe it was for the best for Gamerlegion, but I don't see them, as you say, with Hampus leading and Dennis, who, even after his break to kind of find himself, it just
didn't really find himself.
It's even more underwhelming than when it started.
Yeah. Maui, you've got some choice words for this.
I'm not really going to pretend like I watch Gamerlegion games.
Neither did I, it's okay.
Yeah, so I don't really have a lot to say, but I just know that if you kicking an in-game leader, it rarely ever ends well. Like it's well, I guess it ended well with Fnatic, kind of for a bit, but
Kind of.
okay. Actually, you know what? It does end well sometimes, so maybe it's good. Who knows? I guess.
Maniac. Actually, if I remember correctly, I might be wrong about this, to be honest. Were you playing with LDLC and you retired at the same time as Existence was removed from LDLC, right?
Yes, a few weeks after that I retired.
Yeah. Now I understand if you can't talk about that, but do you think that reasons for LDLC's removal back then were similar? Because honestly, I actually remember casting a lot of your games, and I thought that LDLC had a few really cute rounds and a few really cute strategies, especially against better tier teams. So, do you want to say that? If you can talk about it, if you can't, it's fine.
Yeah, I can talk about it. Obviously, it's no secret, or I'm not gonna talk bad on behind someone else's back. It's just let me put it this way. As I said, sometimes Existence can be a little bit too direct, maybe a little bit rough around the edges when he talks to people and what is wrong in a team and what needs to be done better. He doesn't necessarily have how can I say the delicacy, the delicatesse, how to put things. He doesn't do that very well, right? So when you do that in a team, you're gonna make some people mad. Some people are not gonna like it so much the way you talk to them. I never had an issue with it. We could always talk together. He could be rough sometimes. It's all right. We always had a dialogue. So I never had an issue. But with some people he had. And if you're gonna take that position, then you need to have loyalties for you. Either the organization, you have the organization's loyalty, or you have players' loyalty that's kind of is gonna protect you from anyone else that's gonna be bothered, frustrated, or doesn't like the way you talk to him. Now in LDLC, Existence, he kind of burned all the bridges with pretty much everyone when things went, or when we were having bad results, and burning all these bridges, he didn't have any loyalties anymore. He just had mine, which is why even though I agree Existence is he's probably the best in-game leader I've ever played with, and I think he's still like a technical genius. I think he's very dedicated to the game. He has many qualities. He still needs to play the political game of Counter-Strike. It is a truth, and we hate to talk about it, but there is a political game to it when you're in a team. And now, if you think about Gamerlegion, he's in an international team. Maybe Scream feels somewhat loyal to him. The organization just comes from. I actually don't know anything about Gamerlegion, so I don't know how tight he was with them. But yeah, this is basically what happened in LDLC, and I think is what happened here is that they probably run into some troubles. He didn't handle it the best way possible. People got mad and decided, you know what? The problem is not me. The problem is you. And then you have 4 people saying it's not me, it's you. And then 4 people just point at the same person who actually ignited the fire, and you're gone. And I think that's what happened. But it's just hypothesis. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but that's just my understanding of it.
So there's a lot of French teams that are currently being assembled. I don't know if you saw the Nell tweet, Phoebe. Did you go through the article that Nell wrote, which
I
summarized?
I posted a reply to it to get it. To read it eventually. I know there's body making teams and all sorts that
So
gives me physical pain.
Body isn't that bad. I really don't know why people.
Is that a pun?
That.
Is that a joke? Like body, physical pain. No one's gonna jump on that.
Nobody ever appreciates my
We should
humor.
give some credit. We should give some credit.
No. You've
it.
trained in psychology. You know what Pavlovian training is. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, you don't want to condition. I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
Exactly. You ignore it. But yeah,
Okay.
so Phoebe, I'm guessing you didn't read the article. So do you mind pulling that up really quickly? And in the meanwhile, I'll just quickly introduce the next topic, which is also about existence. And Maui, I'm sorry, I know you're from America, so this part might be a little bit, boxing you out. But welcome to how I feel when you talk analytically. So I'm kind of curious because we're at the point where, look, man, Kio's been a free agent for a goddamn long time, and Existence has been kicked out of a lot of teams. Existence said he doesn't want to retire until he wins a major. There are still a few players that would probably be willing to play with him because they don't really have a shot anywhere else. Do you think there's a world where Existence, Body, Kio plus 2 actually get together, Phoebe?
Sorry, I was reading the article. Give me a TLDR there, because I wasn't listening.
You know what? Maniac heard that one. So, Maniac, do you think there's a world where they get together? And then, Phoebe, you can look at the article and the Body line up and see if there's something that makes sense.
I would be very surprised if it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be very surprised, to be honest. Kioshima is probably waiting for a somewhat better offer. I think it takes a lot to decide that you're gonna go down deep in the ranking and then fight back up. Obviously, Existence had that in him when he put that project together and then formed Gamerlegion. I am not sure that Kioshima does have that kind of will. Maybe that's the case, but I doubt it. And I think that Buddy already has like a kind of friends / whatever team lined up that he wants to play with. So I would be very surprised. Now, maybe Existence could like be the missing piece that gathers everyone together and says we're gonna make this work. Buddy, you have a decent anchor. Kioshima, I thought was playing actually really well in Cloud9. I wouldn't remove him from Cloud9, at least based on what I had seen on the server for sure. So you have Kioshima, Existence, Body, you add 2 players into this. Why not? But that's a very, very wide why not. It's like I think it's probably just the end for Existence at this point. It's just I think it's probably the end.
Maybe over the past year, I just checked, Kioshima has been in a team for a total of 4 months in the past 13 months. It doesn't matter how good you are if you're only showing it off in FPL. What do you think?
I think it's quite interesting with Kioshima and how people talk about his toxicity and everything, and it's the problem is the big meme because in the past he obviously had some problems, and teammates who have had him recently are like, no, he's fine. We had no issues with him, but the reputation that has come to haunt him has probably cost him opportunities, which is ridiculously unfortunate. And French scene drama is way too complicated for me to remember who he's been having arguments with and who he's had problems with back in 2014 when one of them had the other one. Like, whatever. That's way too much to unpack. But for the top teams, like, he said on stream that he doesn't want to join Vitality, but he would love to join G2. And he's made jokes about that in the past where he said, "Oh, I'm joining," and he obviously hasn't. But I think that he had problems with Shox at one point because, he, like, Keo sided with somebody else instead of Shox, and then Shox has all this bitterness towards him, and it then gets very messy when you then try and work out the kind of reasoning behind why certain people are not pals, to put it mildly.
Maui, if somehow the planets aligned, if somehow, French Counter-Strike had like amnesia, their heads were hit on the head with a mallet by Maniac, who just goes to each of their houses saying, "Guys, that's enough. I've learned this. I'm a trained professional." Do you think that roster would be good enough with those three plus to maybe make it into a top 10?
So the roster right now is
Existence,
Keo.
okay,
Body, Keo, Existence, Body.
Yeah,
and then they were talking about Twanu and Matthew or something.
Wait, let me find this. So there's Twanu.
Or Devo.
Twanu,
he was
I'm
like,
assuming Twanu will not play with Existence. I'm guessing that from what Maniac.
Okay,
No,
fine.
Twanu would
was
have
fine
no
on them?
problem
Okay,
playing
so
with
Twanu-
Existence.
so
I don't know.
Twanu's
I don't know
the
if
other.
Existence would play with him again
Yeah.
because Twanu is a very talented player, but he didn't work so much. He wasn't really invested. I think that's something Existence didn't like. But they're friends. There's no
Alright,
issue
so
between
let's
the two.
say either Twanu or Scream, one of those two, and the last is Davidovec because he's probably the most talented from them. What do you think?
well, Existence wouldn't retire for a while then, because he's not winning a major anytime soon with that.
Honestly, he's never it's not gonna happen. Like, I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
why? How would it happen? Like, does he? I mean, the only silver lining of this Gamerlegion experience for Existence is that he might have a bit more confidence and trust and ability in his English, which for the
Yeah.
longest time was what was precluding him from joining an international team at a time where, if you go back in the past, maybe someone would have loved to play with him when he was still a top ingame leader. Now, probably he feels better with his English. That's great. But besides, like how? I don't see a route or a way back to the top for him. I think this Gamerlegion and the way the past few months went, and as Phoebe said rightfully so, they've had decent results, probably even better than what expected. I think this was maybe his way back in, like in the, however you want to call it, like the top of
The
Counter-Strike
scene,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't see how it's gonna happen now. Now that he's out, like, is he just gonna go back the mountain and start hiking it up again? And we can talk about him in 2 years because I think that's how long it's gonna take to go back up. Or I just don't see how.
See, now I know the way. There's this thing called ESL Pro League. I know you guys have heard of it, but it also comes with a very dark place, and that's between 7th position and 16th position in North American Counter-Strike. There's a lot of pretty mediocre teams over there who could probably use an in-game leader. Maui, do you think any of them really would be willing to maybe pick him up? Because honestly, I look at Lazarus, I look at Envy, I look at, hell, even if Ghost Gaming wants to stick around, then they're going to need a new in-game leader as well. United has been on the cusp of being good for a long time. Do you think there's anyone who could maybe, say, Existence, please come be toxic in America, because that's what we're all about?
Actually, if we're gonna speak American, I think a roster on INTZ with actually like Yay, Existence, KNG.
INTZ?
Yeah, because they already have shown that they're willing to speak English. So I think that's like a really talented roster that doesn't have the best direction right
When
now.
did they show they're willing to speak English?
When they picked up Yay
They don't-
for a couple
Okay.
they picked up Yay for a couple qualifiers.
Alright.
And they spoke and it's not like Yay spoke Portuguese
Yeah.
like on that team. So yeah, they were. So maybe I think that would be the best route for him. Actually, I think INTZ could totally use him, but that's like a really big. That's a huge stretch.
Existence
but
to
I
a
was-
Brazilian team isn't happening. He's not that confident in his English. I don't care what Gamerlegion was like.
It's gonna be a lot of broken English in
Just-
that team now.
Okay, you know what? Fantasyland, Maniac, Existence in KNG.
I mean, why not? If you think about this potential scenario, then basically all the rules of like physics
Yeah,
and science
yeah.
are out the window. So yeah, we can just have
Yeah.
fun and say, sure, why not? Like
Sure, why
Kevin
not?
moves to wherever in the US, and then
Would he
they're
be
all
open
happy
to that
together.
though? Like moving to America for a team that
I
isn't that.
He would be the one to answer that, but I would highly doubt it.
Okay.
But he will obviously maybe have a different
All
answer,
right,
but I don't
fair
think so.
enough. But you know what? Speaking of now slightly higher profile, but very quickly becoming profile just as low, MIBR. They might be saying goodbye to Coldzera. That's what the rumor is on the block. And rumor's basically been confirmed. Coldzera in his Instagram comments did actually go ahead and say that, hey, you know, I want to play with the team for the major, but they're not letting me. Even though the team MIBR, from what if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I am, they haven't actually confirmed it yet that Coldzera is going to be benched afterwards. So Cole is kind of just like, you know, on Instagram here, there, sending pictures to Nico sending pictures to Kioshima because everyone knows Kioshima is just going to post that. So what do you guys think about Cole departing MIBR right now, at least attempting to do so, Maniac?
Honestly, the MIBR one is a mystery to me. I haven't it was and I still haven't figured out why everything went so bad as it did. And I strongly believe that there are things that I don't see or I don't know about how the team is run and like the personal stuff that's in it, because I would need that to explain why things went so wrong. So that's the first thing. Now, Coldzera, if you're MIBR, do you want to let him go? No, absolutely not. You don't want that. But he could. Like, it's hard to say, because if you look at the numbers, and I'm sure Maui here could help me out with that. If you look at the numbers, Coldzera's numbers were always good. Like, he has maybe 1 or 2 events over the past, I don't know, 18 months where he was like negative or something. So his numbers are insane. Now, I would argue that the impact of these numbers are maybe a little bit under what it looks like. It's not as crazy as it is. I think Coldzera used to be the player that if you had a little bit of an advantage in the round, he would turn it into an insta win. That was his strength when MIBR was doing well, is that whenever they would get a good situation or a possible clutch to play, then he would be the one saying, that's it, we win the round. He always have the -2 when need be. Now, when things go really bad, I haven't really seen Coldzera in a simple type of profile where he would take the round on his own and just, you know, make the aggressive play, open the round and clutch it again. So I think his numbers are really high, but his impact is probably not as high as the numbers would suggest. But still, he is still one of the best players in the world, and I would be very happy to see him in international roster. I think everyone has like FaZe in mind as a possibility. Why not?
The $1 million buyout might be why not. But
I mean, if you're FaZe, I don't think $1 million is a problem.
Well, FaZe is actually stuck up in lawsuits. That's the thing. So their money is actually frozen. They don't have that much access to liquid capital, which is actually like a really important thing whenever you're considering buyout. So you never really know. Now, obviously, that's what's the conversation on the block. But before we move to the conversation on the block, BB, Coldzera is leaving, and now Maniac's nice, and Maniac doesn't want to say anything particularly incendiary. So I'm going to leave that up to you. Because right now, we've seen Cold basically take in-game leadership away from Fallen in the past. We've seen Coldzera publicly say that I want a coach when Fallen is saying we don't need a coach. They are fighting in public, and that's one thing that the Brazilians were fairly good about. It was about keeping their problems behind closed doors, and it's been about a year now since that's happening. Fallen and Coldzera might just not like each other very much anymore. Do you think that maybe this is called overestimating his value because of those numbers, like what Maniac is saying?
I think that, again, it's hard to kind of make a full conclusion, because as somebody who's met Fallen a few times, he seems really nice in terms of he doesn't seem particularly confrontational to, you know, he's obviously, you know, he's going to put on a public face, right? He's not going to come out and be a complete arsehole to everyone, but
hopefully
he seems reasonable. I've met Coldzera. He, again, seemed perfectly reasonable. But obviously, when you're on a team together and you're spending hours traveling together and practicing together and playing together, the minute that you have problems, of course, the star player is going to be blaming the in-game leader pretty much as a thing if there's already a bit of underlying
Nico.
tension. Exactly, I was going to say. His best buddy Nico did the exact same thing of just going, okay, well, I'm better than you. And I think I'm better than this whole team and I could make it better, so I'm just going to seize control because you're just calling strat. I could do that. I can call Rush B. That's not a problem. Let me do it. And Coldzera said he wanted to leave before as well. Like, this isn't the first time that there were rumors that Coldzera wanted to jump ship. Back when Taco was on Liquid, there were the rumors saying that Cold wanted to go and play with Taco again, or he wanted to go and play with Nico again. Go and play with Nico for the first time because of the fact that MIBR wasn't doing well. But I think that is that kind of ego effect of going, no, I'm good, so I'm gonna just do what I want because I am God. I am God. I was the best player in the world 2 years ago. People want me. You guys are too weak and frail, and I am God, Coldzera. And I think that is a little bit of ego coming through, to put it very, very, very mildly.
That's
once you've lost to big, once you've lost to big, it's game over. Like, it's just you need to do something.
Yeah.
You really can't. But you can't be losing to big. You can't be losing to Dennis. Come on, like. Oh.
John, we miss you. Maui, we're going to come back to Coldzera in a second, but because I don't want to talk about MIBR too much, and I know you're the person to ask about this, there is a significant possibility that MIBR, if Coldzera does end up leaving, which I hope he does, brings in Henny. Because that's what was being discussed on the block, which was that Lucas has never been separated from Henny from a long time. If Henny's back on the roster, then, the twins are together. It's young talent. They'll be underneath Fallen. Fallen's opping has kind of, not been the best. Taco himself in an interview with me, which you can check out on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/TeaTimePlays. Taco himself said that he preferred the role he was given on Liquid as well. And right now he's kind of back to being Coldzera's bitch. So it's more like, is this going to be MIBR bringing in Henny? If they are, then do you think that's what they need to get back to? It's not top 5, because I don't think they have the skill for top 5, but like top 8 maybe.
No. Top 8, maybe like borderline 8th, maybe, but like probably not. I don't think Henny's just the right fit for them at all. I think they need to get someone like TRK. No,
right,
ZQK is no. They need someone like, someone that's like kind of mid-late round rifler. Like, they need someone that's like Coldzera. That's like TRK right now for Team 1. Maybe he's a little more aggressive, but that's okay.
Would you not have them completely change their style though? Because that's what I think needs to come through.
I think if they wanted to make like the most drastic change, they need to just get
Furia.
Let Zeus basically like just like, I don't know, pass on. Like, I think Fallen might be the problem right now, actually. I don't know how he doesn't frag at all anymore. So he's kind of like Gob B, but like he still lost to Gob B, and he did way worse individually than Gob B. And Gob B has always been, the people always are like, he doesn't frag. But when they went head to head, I'm pretty sure Gob B came out on top. I don't know. Well, they did in the sense that they won the series. Regardless, I just don't think that Henny's like the right kind of fit for them, unless they want to take Fallen out too. You don't want 2 riflers on the same team. Two oppers on the same team like that. And they're both kind of like chaotic oppers in the sense that like Fallen at his peak likes getting in the face of people. He likes taking kind of op risks. Henny's a lot of the same, and unless you figure out some kind of system that enables both of that, maybe then Fallen creates like the new meta of double opping on every map, like, but that's just so insane to even think about and consider right now. I just don't think they should pick up Henny unless they replace Fallen also.
Maniac, on MIBR's topic, if Henny comes in, what I was personally thinking was that there has been a time in the past where Fallen hasn't actually been the main AWP for the team. And I'm going way back before Coldzera was even added to the team. If I'm not wrong, it was EQKS back then. And do you think that maybe there's a place in this world where Fallen gives up the AWP, says, Henny, come in, and tries to plan the team around Henny and Fur as the stars, give Taco a better role, give Lucas Taco's old position, and completely reimagine the team, do you think that might be better than just trying to get like a person who can replace Coldzera?
I think it's a very difficult question, because if you are asking me what I think about Fallen dropping off the AWP, then it's basically throwing to the bin how MIBR was winning or SK was winning, years ago. So it requires, like, mentally speaking, that I forget everything I know about MIBR and how they used to win, which, in the end might be exactly what they need. Because I really feel like when MIBR was winning the game, or when SK was dictating Counter-Strike, because there used to be a time where Fallen and Coldzera were basically the gods of Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
I really think that the game evolved. I think the game is way more tactical now. People are being way less reckless in a sense. They don't take as much risk. The risks are calculated. I think setups are better. Timings are refined. And the way that MRBR used to win is that they would abuse anyone and everyone's mistake, because individually they were so strong. Now both elements of these sentences aren't true anymore now. MIBR aren't individually better than the top teams anymore, and people don't make as much mistakes. So some of the requisite of how they were winning aren't true anymore. So now if you consider that there are good players in MRBR, then yeah, you might as well just take everything, put it to trash, and try something new. Why not? Because I don't think that you can just apply the how did we used to do it and do it again. I think it's not possible anymore.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind as well. That's why I was thinking that, we kind of need, like, kill it all and let's have the Phoenix come back to life in a new form. Back to Coldzera, and let's see if he can, kill everything as well. Rumors are that he's going to FaZe to replace Neo. Coldzera has in-game led for the team before. Coldzera is definitely a very cerebral player, and Coldzera has had benefit of having Fallen behind him as well as Zeus behind him, who are probably some of the greatest minds Counter-Strike has ever had. As an in-game leader for FaZe, I'm sure it can only be an upgrade over what Neo brings, even if Neo has brought some sort of structure. But does FaZe come back off the back of this? Because, again, like what Maniac is saying, you're not fixing the root problem more likely than not. You're still probably going to be FaZe. We are the greatest of all time. Anyone can jump in on that, because really...
I'm just thinking, like, if, okay, Coldzera steps in, Neo is out, is that a win? Yes. I really don't see how you can answer that differently. Obviously, there would be a need for negotiations in terms of who gets what roles in the team, because you have many players that can shine, that can benefit from positions where they have, like, a lot of freedom and autonomy, some sort of. So there would need to be negotiations in that sense. But now, if you think about what FaZe was capable to do on occasions with Neo, like, FaZe has a very unique FaZe element to it.
Yeah.
It's only happening with that team at the top level, I believe, that you would consider that, yeah, any given day they could win 6-2, 6-2 against anyone, because like it happened. Like they have beat Liquid very decisively. Rain went on like 20-0-0 in the 9 rounds. I've never seen it in my life. So there's always that element. Now you bring Coldzera in, knowing that with Neo it was a possibility, then it's definitely going to be a possibility with Coldzera for, I want to say, flashes in the pan here and there. But I don't know if it's going to be enough to make it like a stable top 2, top 3, even top 4 team in the world. Like I don't know.
Maui, what do you think stylistically?
Yeah, I guess there's the question of roles a little bit. I think they could figure it out. I mean, I don't think they'd have a problem figuring it out. They slotted a Dren in pretty well, actually. Like, they didn't do super well, but they at least look competitive in the games that he played. With Neo, I don't know. I'm just mostly thinking about the interview with Yanko, though, recently, where he was talking about how it doesn't seem like Neo found the right balance for using stars and implementing his structure. But with Coldzera, I think Nico would call for sure. I think Nico just knows the team better. He knows the strengths and weaknesses better of everyone on the team, and he would. I think when you come down to it, like, who do you want in like your 1v2 situation of anyone on that team? I think honestly, like, I don't feel more confident with anyone sitting on default plant Mirage B than Coldzera. Like, there's no one in the world I would rather have in that situation. And I think Nico would give up like that kind of like third man in for Cold there, and I think that would make their T sides work. CT side, I couldn't talk about their exact spots or anything like that, but I mean, if Cold's on the team, like if I'm Nico, I'm like, finally, like someone like that I can kind of compare myself to, like that I really admire right now or something. Like Nico probably saw Olaf and was like, yeah, Olaf, you were good like 5 years ago, but I'm good now or something. Guardian's kind of been good for a while, but then like Cold is like, we're freeing him. We're gonna free Cold, and like I would like I'm gonna run off a cliff for Cold. Like if I know Cold's behind me, like I don't care if I'm Nico. A little bit, I put my ego aside just a little bit, and I think it would just lift the spirits. Yeah, for a month of results. Yeah, for a month, for like 2 tournaments worth of results. Then I'd be like, oh, what is happening again?
I'm the best in the world again.
If they just have a miracle run with Cold replacing Neo, I think that team could have a lot of like an extensive honeymoon period. I don't think they'd be like era level, but they would be like 6 months of just like
all FaZe, basically, when Carrigan and everyone, you know, when the gang got together. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of, now, I know you weren't really following CS back then, Phoebe, but maybe Maui was. There was a meme about old CLG when Tarek and FNS were both on it, and FNS used to say, like, guys, listen, I have to make all of my settings the exact same as Tarek's. I have to make my crosshair the same, my resolution the same, everything, so that when Tarek dies, he can come and play on my computer. I feel like Coldzera and Nico are about to do that to Rain and Olaf. I'm not going to lie. Phoebe, do you think that this can work between players? Not the actual settings part, the chemistry.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like FaZe is always just that team where it's going to float between top 5, top 10. It's going to have moments where it almost, with who they have now in the form of Guardian and Rain and Olaf and Nico and whoever they want to put in that revolving door, it is just like, okay, you're never going to rule FaZe out. You're never going to go, oh, FaZe are going to bomb out of this tournament. But are they going to be making finals? Maybe, if they have some sort of really lucky and impressive run where Guardian is having one of his, like, a tournament where he's feeling it, and Olaf is doing stuff as well, and Nico is performing well, because Nico is kind of
good.
You know, he's good, but he's not the Nico that we've seen. And I think that then, you know, you've got, you know, Guardian has said he's going to end his career on FaZe, and, you know, he's approaching the age where he may start considering, oh, you know, I've got a wife at home, I quite like to see her more than 2 days a year. And I think that it's just, as I say, they are that team that, regardless of who they have, I'm never going to bet on them going dead last in a tournament, but I would never be saying, oh yeah, they're going to make finals. Oh yeah, they'll make playoffs.
I mean, you said it about Vitality in G2, so
well, yeah, but you know, they're different, they're special. But yeah, every single phase that I look at, I just go, yeah, you're going to make playoffs. You're good, yeah.
So you don't think they're going to be top 5?
I think they may hover in that, as I say, that sort of top 5 to top 10. It just depends on how all the other teams then kind of sort their shit out. Because there's a lot of teams that are floating in that top 5 vicinity. You've got NRG, you've got Vitality, you've got Astralis, you've got Ents, who they may choose to do something soon. And I just think it's too competitive to say, oh, they're definitely top 5, even with Coldzera.
No, that makes sense. So I personally think that one of the bigger issues that we're going to see happen is that the team's going to be divided because of what Maui was talking about, which is when Nico will look at Coldzera and Coldzera will look at Nico, and their eyes will meet, and they will see the HLTV rankings of years past and say, hey, we have found each other. The problem is that kind of isolates the other 3 players. And with the team that's probably already as... I'm going to say I don't think that they've got a great team atmosphere, more likely than not. So that could be problematic. Now, of course, when you've got as talismanic players as they are, maybe they do just, you know, say, all right, fine, we understand, we're going to go along with this, we're going to try and figure things out and, you know, play around you two. That could work. But for me, FaZe, I really don't see them going past into top 5. When you consider Liquid, Vitality, Astralis, and NaVi, those are the 5 that I expect to be in top 5 all the time. Then NRG can threaten.
You forgot Mousesports.
No. I mean immediately. 6 months down the line. Listen, if we're talking 6 months down the line, then FaZe is going to be disbanded, Matthew.
All right, then Mousesports isn't there. All right, cool. I was just teasing you because I was waiting for Mousesports to jump in.
Unreasonable. I'm a reasonable fella. I'm just saying Mousesports is going to win the major, the next one, not Star Ladder. Anyhow, so FaZe isn't going to be top 5 in my opinion. Even if they're top 6, that would be lucky considering the fact that we've got NRG, we've got G2 who are looking better. North honestly look legit. Like North look like they want an upwards run as well. This seems too hard for me. Final topic of discussion before we can close things out, and this is just here so that I can flame drone a little bit. We all agree Big is kind of terrible, right?
Yeah.
Let me just casually open my match page to see what they've been up to, because I will admit that I haven't really followed Big that much recently, and that in itself is a sign.
There's not much to follow. There's not much. They haven't played a lot. Yeah.
That's why I'm saying this is a sign. Like if I don't know what they're up to, that's not a good sign.
If you're not relevant to Matthew, then you're irrelevant at all. Which is why I'm relevant, because he's here on the podcast. Anyway, so Gob B is not the in-game leader anymore.
What?
Yeah.
What did you say?
Gob B isn't the in-game leader. Tabson in-game leader to Cologne.
Shocks effect right there.
What?
Yeah.
Tabson is taking on in-game leader.
Gob B, the legendary in-game leader from Mousesports, the man who trained Carrigan, the man who went to North America to make NRG great, but really completely failed, and then came back and somehow made Smooya work in a team, is no longer the in-game leader.
Okay, then maybe Maui can step in here with historical knowledge, but in my experience, this is always the first step towards the exit.
This is the FaZe story.
In-game leader that then suddenly isn't the in-game leader anymore. There was existence in G2, Carrigan in FaZe.
Yeah,
I think that's probably it. At some point, it's gonna be it. Or maybe Tabson tries being in-game leader and then realizes, wait a minute, I cannot do it. It was better with you. Like sort of when you have like a 20-year-old relationship and you think suddenly this person is gonna be better, but no, you remember why you married that person and things are great. Maybe that's what's gonna happen with Gob B and Tabson, but if not, then I think it's probably it's gonna be the end at some point.
Are you sure you're okay?
What do you mean?
The relationship
perfect
thing
metaphor.
Seems a little bit,
it's perfect metaphor. It's how it is. It's how it is when you have an in-game leader.
Yeah, sure. The in-game leader. Anyway, Maui, I know Matthew wanted you to jump on this, but I want to hear from Phoebe first, because let's be realistic, she won't have an opinion otherwise. Phoebe, what do you think about this? And not just the shock effect. What do you think? Like, how do you say no to Gob B as
from
Tabson?
The interview? Yeah, but I think from the interview that Tabson gave, obviously we've only really got Tabson's side of it, but he seemed to imply that it was Gob B saying that he kind of felt like he didn't have the confidence to lead the team. And, he's 31, so he is pretty much at the top end of he is in the top 1 percentile of players that are still even in like the top 30 in terms of age. He is pretty much, I think he's usually the oldest player at a tournament if Big are there. And his, mechanically he is not exactly
better than London.
Simple. Yeah. But, he's not keeping up with the young guys in the same way with his aim. He will work hard, so he's able to at least maintain a level that is usually enough for Big. But I'll refer to an interview again that is meant to come out soon. But when I spoke to Dennis, he kind of implied about how Xantares is there, and obviously in the other interview with Tabson, they said they picked him up without practicing with him once. They just wanted him, picked him up, and then realized quite how difficult the situation is when you as Germans are now trying to talk English to a guy who mostly speaks Turkish. Apparently that's a challenge. And they're still giving him German lessons, which seems to imply that if they're going to pick up a 5th player, their goal is to pick up another German player. They don't really seem particularly keen on international players. And regardless of what happened with Smooya, 2 international players in a row have either not been what they expected or have had some sort of individual clashes with the team.
I feel like
kind of
Smooth has been
outside of the
exactly
server.
what they expected.
Well, yeah, but all I mean is that, you know, they probably thought, oh, he's a bit of a knob, but maybe he'll calm down, and he just didn't. But, you know, you kind of think, oh, he'll grow and he'll learn a bit of German, and Smooth is there being British going, no, I fucking won't. But, yeah, and Xantares has rocked up and gone, Guten Tag. There's my German, and then they've gone, do you know any other words? And he's like, no. And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, and then he's there going, yeah, that's all my German and that's all my English. And I think that then it is that sort of, they're in a ridiculously difficult position because Xantares has not been, you know, this insane star player that's just come in and carried the team to victory, because he has a personality where Tabson said in his interview, Xantares has a mentality of he wants to go into a round and win it for him, like he's just going to win it for the team. But Big have kind of had to try and rein him in and say, you have a team behind you. You don't need to try and run out and win every round for us. You can play with the team, which is clearly something he's not used to. And I think that the fact that they didn't know this, they didn't practice, and you're still, however many months after picking him up, it's been 2-3 months, you're still struggling to just say, hey, Xantares, stop, no, don't run away. Okay, he's gone. And if actually you're panicking and you're also speaking German, it's a language he doesn't even know a little bit of. So you're just there, and Gob B is kind of having to translate a little bit because you both speak Turkish. So you pretty much have a Tyloo situation where you've got a guy trying to be translating mid-game to kind of go, hey, no, there's a guy there behind you. Like, that sounds stressful, and I'm not even involved in it. And I think that, Big have been really disappointing, but the internal mess that they are going through, they don't want to pick up another IGL. They don't want to pick up a German IGL. Their goal, from what I gathered from Dennis, was more that, they want to pick up an AWPer again. But the team doesn't want to pick up Smooya. They are not taking him off the bench, and they obviously don't want Kiev. So they kind of have no idea what they want to do post-major. They're looking at the same German AWPers that they wanted to pick up before they picked up Smooya. And they don't really have a plan, which is just makes things pretty impossible if you've then just got you've just got Tabson and you're like, why don't you lead an AWP and just do everything for us while Xantares just runs off where he's just going to the other side of the map. Don't worry about it.
See, now here's the thing. I happen to know 2 people pretty well, I'd say, who cast the German ESL Meisterschaft League. So they know the players pretty well as well. And Maui's one of them. So Maui, do you think there's anyone, any prospect, any hot prospect that could maybe change how BiG works? Do you think that Gob B needs to be changed as an in-game leader if they're losing faith in him?
Well, I just scanned through that Tabson interview, and they were talking about Surson, who I know you're not a big fan of anyone on Sprout right now, it seems like, but they have a lot of talent on that team. Like, they can just kind of walk over everyone else in the German scene right now. So,
except
I don't know, maybe they get, except for alternate attacks. But yeah, I mean, Surson and a lot of the Sprout players have shown quite a bit of promise, I think. So maybe one of them, I guess. But if they're already willing to reach out internationally, and they just want to make this a completely English project or something like that, the world's their oyster at that point. But if we have to keep it in the German, in the Meisterschaft League, maybe KZY, I don't know, someone
Stephen
from Unicorns of Love.
Kazuya. We're really going, trying to be
Wait,
discovering new players there.
Is KZY Kazuya?
No, I have nothing against Kazuya. It's just when you are talking about getting Kazuya to BiG.
Because we've been casting him for a while and we've got no idea.
Oh yeah, we've just.
I think that's how they would pronounce it, Kazuya.
Okay.
I think so.
I've just been calling him KZ. I've just been calling him KZ.
Yeah, it works when you look at the console. So I think it might be that, or maybe I'm just completely out of my head right now. But the big situation, I was just listening to Phoebe thinking, well, this looks really bad. Yeah. This looks really, really bad. And she actually makes a point. Now, all I want for BiG, and which is actually the complete opposite direction as what they're doing now, is can we please allow Tabson to just play Counter-Strike? Like, just stop giving him things to do. please stop it. AWP, stop it. In-game leaders, stop it. Let him be. He was for the longest time in my personal top 10 in terms of players in the
He
world.
was really good for a
Like
while.
he was up there. Even when Big was not that great, he would always be, statistically speaking at least, and against anyone and everyone, he would be a beast. Like just allow him to go back there. And I don't think that putting more and more responsibilities on him is gonna have that effect. I think it's gonna be the other way around. So I'm kind of saddened that, but I can understand why, and I know tabseN as a person. I can understand why he would say, okay, you know what, just give me this rucksack and give me this. I'm going to carry everything. And it's going to be all right. I like the attitude. I think it's counterproductive. They should enable him instead of just burying him under responsibilities.
Honestly, I'll tell you how to fix Big right now. You remove Dennis. You add Stephen from Alternate Attacks, who's a solid player, by the way. Very, very good. Then, on top of that, you let Gob B be the in-game leader again. Let tabseN AWP if he wants to. That's all right. If you want to bring in an AWPer, well then, Slacks and Montu aren't bad. I will never advocate for Sirson in my entire life, no matter what happens, even if he becomes the best player in the world, because he gave us a terrible game a few days ago. So I think that fixes Big. I think that puts Big back in top 12. Now, I don't think they have any right to be in top 10, realistically, now that Smooya's not there, because say what you want about Smooya, the guy, and I'm quoting Phoebe, I'm not saying this myself, because I kind of want him on as a guest later on, is that the guy might have been a bit of a knob at times, but he was a good knob. He was a knob that worked. He was a knob that, went ahead, got the kills when they needed. He was really sporadic, but it felt like a lot of the times that's what they needed, because tabseN was that top 10, top 20 player that, Maniac is talking about. And with that, they had some decent supportive elements in Tizian. They had Gob B over there. And, Smooya really just helped them shape it all out. Nex, of course, was up and down, but you can replace Nex with Stephen. That's all right. So what exactly is going to happen for them to go into top 10? I don't think they can do it with German players. I just feel like that's gone. With Smooya, top 10 is gone for Big. It's just never going to happen again. Unless somehow or the other they find like some German prodigy.
It's quite interesting though, because everybody makes the jokes that like the lower tiers of Germany are just full of cheaters, and there are a lot of reports and sort of accusations and rumors that are going around that of certain teams and
especially
certain
these
players.
days.
Yeah, and I, without revealing too much, there are reports coming that are going to be coming out soon that compromise a lot of these German players. Whether I'm not the one who's authored it, so I'm not going to give sort of details or anything, but there are some notable German teams and players that have not been doing things particularly legitimately. And I think for Big, okay, all scenes are going to have their dodgy, bad apples, but Germany has a real big problem when it comes to people either throwing or cheating, because it's quite profitable when you then break down the numbers of how much players that you think, okay, that you've heard the names, but they're not notable. They're earning thousands.
Yeah.
If they choose to do things illegitimately. And actually, if you don't think you're ever going to get picked up by Big or Sprout in your career, if somebody says to you, hey, do you want some money to throw? Or if you cheat, you'll earn this much in an online cup. There are a lot of players that have either kind of been approached and accepted or have gone through with those sorts of things. And I think if you're Big, you're also going to have to be so careful in terms of who you pick up, because if you pick up somebody and then next week they go, oh yeah, this guy, he was cheating the whole time. I cheated. Here's evidence of him throwing. Here's all the money. If you're Big, that's just a PR nightmare.
Honestly, I've seen the reports as well that you're talking about, because I'm pretty sure we know the same journalist, because he sent them to me as well. But those are really obvious from what I've seen. It's very unlikely that Big make that mistake. But anyhow, I think that's about it from my topic list. Phoebe, is there anything you want to bring up before we close things up?
Can't think of anything. The only thing I was going to say was the get right thingy at Cologne.
Yeah. I think that's been discussed enough overall. Get right's a legend. We all have immense respect for him. He will retire when he chooses to, and before he chooses to, there will always be space for him in the Counter-Strike scene. I think that goes without saying. He's one of the players like Taz and Neo who, no matter what happens, they always belong in the scene, and they can stay for just as long as they want to, even if they have to drop down a few levels, maybe, perhaps. He's just one of those players who defined Counter-Strike to become what it is right now. So, maybe not. The only thing I had in mind was, Blast Pro LA, but I have a feeling Maniac might not want to talk about that because he might actually get hired. Not by Blast Pro LA, but Blast Pro in general.
What do you mean? I mean, we can talk about Blast Los Angeles like as a tournament. I have no
Alright.
issue.
Okay,
I
fair
have no
enough.
issue talking about it. But I think if you're just gonna talk about that tournament, the most interesting topic for me is NRG, and I think NRG is under they are under everyone's. I mean, they're not on anyone's radar, but they are quietly making a case. So a real top team, and
Just
and to
clarify,
my surprise as well.
I didn't mean as a competitive tournament. I meant as the event itself, because there's been a few
Ooh.
revelations recently. So I'm guessing you don't want to talk about that. You'd rather not, just because.
I mean,
Let's just
it's
stay
not
away
really
from it.
my
It's fine.
place or my
We're-
position.
Yeah, we're almost at
the
2
information
hours
is out
anyway.
there, so
Yeah, the information's out there. So we can talk shit about them later on when Maniac's gone.
Although, fun
anyhow.
fact, Cloud9 at 301 in the rankings.
Oh, right.
The next closest team is Renegades at 16th. So that's a fun debut. It's like, oh.
Cloud9 should be exciting actually to look at. I didn't realize they were playing there. That should be a fun one. That being said, though, I think that's about it from all of us. Thank you, Maniac, so much for being on here. We really always appreciate it whenever someone comes on who will guarantee us front page Reddit. So hey.
well, my pleasure. It was I had a really fun time.
No, I'm glad. And you're always more than welcome to come on again. All jokes aside, you were a great guest, so thank you so much. Maui, any closing thoughts before we close, head out?
NRG are interesting too. Yeah, they're cool.
I've had that in mind.
Still think they're always going to be my dark horse in a tournament.
Listen,
That's it.
I've had that in
They're
mind,
always-
but I feel like we haven't seen enough from them. We'll probably talk more about NRG after Blast Pro LA. Yeah. Hey, there's one tournament with Stanislaw. Okay,
They did.
you know
They
what?
did better than
Let
Mousesports.
me just say, fuck you and everything that you live for.